I'm going to skip some of these. Um, how do men and women look at money differently? Well, look at this. Men know to invest. My brothers were taught to invest, and maybe your brothers were too. Women were taught to save, and you said that in your messages. Save, 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 save. Not invest. You're going to get a very small percentage of return on that investment. And Karine will explain this to you. Next, men use money to keep score. In other words, do I have a bigger car than yours? Do I have a bigger house than yours? Do I go on more expensive vacations? That's about keeping score. Women use money to care for others. Did you know that women spend more in discretionary funds, far more, something like 70% more than men? So the discretionary money that women have, they spend 70% more of it on other people. That's a lot of discretionary spending. Men use money to buy what they need. Women use it to buy what they want, right? So I want those pair of shoes. I want that purse. I want these earrings. I want whatever it is. Men tend to have more money because they buy what they need. Men look at money in terms of the future. We use it to create a present lifestyle. We buy lamps and candles and cushions and pillows and things like that. Men aren't spending their money on those things. Men take risks with their money. Women are cautious. Now, this is something interesting, and Karine, you'll jump in if you agree or don't agree. The fact is that women make better investors than men. Once they're taught how to invest, they make better investors because they are more cautious. They don't jump in and out of investments. And because they tend to have less money, they're more careful with where they're putting it. Where men have more to lose, women have less to lose. So, Corinne, do you agree with that? That when women learn, they actually make better investors?
They do make the best investors, actually, and they're actually the best custodians in terms of taking care of other people's money once they
Ah,
understand and know how to invest.
now that I didn't know, but that's interesting. And that's why I switched from a male financial planner. It really does a lot better for me than he did, but I didn't know that. So that's interesting. So when you're looking for a financial planner or someone to help you, maybe your best bet is to look for a woman to help you. Men ask for what they want. Women only ask for what they think they deserve. So no wonder there's a difference in pay and salary, right? Men go in and say, I want to earn $50,000 a year for this job. Women think, well, what is it that I deserve and what do other people get? And should I really get this? And we talked about this somewhat in the leadership conference in August, where I talked about the fact that men and women negotiate so much differently that women often get less in the end. And men tend to gravitate towards high paying jobs. Women tend to gravitate towards helping professions, nursing, teaching, social work, things like that. So to have someone like Karine here that knows so much about money and is a woman, we're really very fortunate. Okay, because women often don't go into financial planning. They often don't go into the highest paying jobs because of the same reasons you talked about in the chat. I'm going to skip this only because we have so little time. But I do want to show you this. When women were asked if they thought they'd have enough money for retirement, 36% of women say they are not confident that they'd have enough money for retirement. 46% say they're somewhat confident, and only 18% are very confident they'd have enough money for retirement. So you need to think about, where do you fall in all this? And how are you going to get to that very confident pile? That's where you want to be. If you are lucky, you're going to grow to be an old lady. And you want to be a rich old lady. You do not want to be a poor old lady. Believe me. Okay. So you want to listen very carefully to what Corrine talks to you about, because she's going to talk to you about how to get from here over to here. Okay, what are the top 10 mistakes women make with money? Number one, you envision survival, not wealth. You just are thinking about, how do I get from paycheck to paycheck? How do I get enough money to cover the bills? How do I get enough money for the rent to keep my kid in school or whatever? If you envision survival, you will never get rich. Number two, we don't take enough risks. Look at this. Men willing to take a substantial risk for substantial gain. Men are almost twice as willing as women to take substantial risk and willing to take above average risk. Still, 30% of men are willing to take above average risk and only 19% of women. Now, I'm not saying you should do this alone. Again, this is where you get someone who knows about money to help you. I can tell you that was the smartest thing that I did. Hey, look, I know about human resources. I know about employee relations. There's a lot of things I know about leadership and coaching, but I'm not an expert on how to invest and really make money. Corrine is, okay? And so that's where the smartest thing I did was find someone who could help me learn all this. And it's been really wonderful. Number three, top 10 mistakes women make with money. We value relationships more than money. If somebody comes to you, a friend comes to you and says, I want to borrow some money, you're likely to give it to them. You're much more likely than a man to loan a friend money. And then when they don't pay it back, you go, oh, well, they just don't have the money, or whatever it is. When you loan money to people, assume that you will never get it back, because I'm not sure what percentage of loans are never paid back, but between friends, but it's a very high percentage. So if you can't afford to lose it, don't give it. And if it's a substantial loan that someone wants, and I've had this happen, I've had people ask me for substantial loans. I have them sign a paper saying that this is a loan, it's not a gift. Here's how you're going to pay me back. Here's when you're going to pay me back. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, people honor it. And very infrequently have people not honored that. So once you formalize it, they're more likely to pay you back. Also, when it comes to children, right? People see you as the bank of mom, right? They don't see it as the bank of dad. It's the bank of mom. Dad will say no, mom won't. The next time, especially if you're an older woman who's nearing retirement, when your kids come to you and say they want money because they want to buy a house, they want to put their child into private school, you need to look at them and you need to say this, honey, the best gift I could give you is my financial independence in old age. And so I'm not going to give you the money. Number 4, women use money as an emotional salve, right? It's like, if I'm hurting, I spend money. If I'm happy, I spend money, right? If I'm sad, I spend money. So we use it emotionally as opposed to more objectively. We give money away. I've talked about that. We lack a financial vision. Every woman knows what she wants the scale to read when she steps on it, right? That's a number every woman knows. When I step on the scale, what do I want that number to be? But when I say to women, okay, so how much money do you need to be rich? No clue. No clue what they should be aiming for. So if you don't have a vision, it's like Alice in Wonderland said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So you need to have a financial vision. Number 7, we don't negotiate enough. Everything is negotiable, ladies. Everything. And we don't negotiate often enough. And then when we do negotiate, we're afraid we're going to damage the relationship if we negotiate too hard. Okay. I just recently bought a car. And I went to the dealer and I knew what the price of the car was. And I said, well, this is what my budget is. And you can either put me out the door in this car for this amount of money, or I'll find somebody who will. Okay. And you know what? They exactly met what I went in there to ask for. If you don't know what you want going in, how do you know you got a good deal on it? So you've got to do your research. You've got to do all that. You've got to be willing to negotiate. Number 8, remain financially illiterate. You're not going to get wealthy. You're not going to thrive if you don't learn about money. That has to be the top of your list this year, learning about money. Women don't invest because they think they don't have enough money to invest. But again, Karina, I think Karina will probably talk to you about the fact that you don't need a lot of money to start investing. You can start with $10 a week, $50 a week, $100 a month. And what happens is there's something that's called compound interest. Ben Franklin said compound interest will turn all your lead into gold. Okay. And that's because once you start investing, it compounds and it grows exponentially. It's not like if you put your money into a savings account and you know you're going to get 1.5% or 2% a year. You're not going to get far that way. But investing will really help you get ahead because of that compounding. And finally, women don't, the mistake that women make is we manage egos more than our money. In other words, we acquiesce to doubters. Okay. So, for example, there was a woman that her husband was a stay-at-home dad, and she was a physician. Okay. So she was the breadwinner in the family. And he was in charge of investing the money. And one day her financial planner went to her and said, I just want you to know your husband's not doing a good job of managing your money. And you know what she said? I don't want to worry about that. He already feels bad enough that I'm the breadwinner. What guy would say, it's okay if you lose my money? Okay, because you feel bad about staying home. So you can just go ahead and invest it however you want. There isn't a guy on earth that would say that. And I see Karine laughing, right? She's going, no man would say that. But that's what we do because we're trying to, maintain the relationship. And there's things that you can do to not do that.